I'm Helga from Helga's Pennsylvania Cooking, and today I'm doing something that's been requested a lot. Easy, no-knead bread. I'm going to take you through the stuffs. I'm doing the really quick one. There's an overnight one, and then there's one that takes about 3 hours to let rise. But it is a no-knead bread, and I'm going to be doing it in the Dutch oven. This is for my friend Deb, and for DIY Dark Matter. This is for you. Anybody can do this, and it turns out a really nice bread. So I'm going to bring you along with how I do it. Because it's still fairly warm in the house before the cold front comes through. It is pouring rain out right now, so it's a good day to do this. So I'm using 3 cups of flour. You can use all-purpose or bread flour. What's the difference between bread flour and all-purpose? Bread flour is a higher protein flour, so it works the gluten more, and that gives you a little better texture and finer bread. So it just makes a little bit nicer quality bread, but you can certainly use all-purpose, and that's fine too. So I have my 3 cups of flour in. We're going to mix in a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. I'm just going to mix that all together here, work it in, and then 1.5 cups of hot tap water. And I'm just going to pour that in and work that around and get that incorporated. Okay, so here it is, worked up, mixed together. Now I'm going to cover it with cling wrap and let it sit at room temperature for 3 hours. So it's been 3 hours, well, a little over 3 hours, and you can go longer with this, it doesn't matter. And it only rose about half of what it should rise, okay? And now it smells yeasty, but that isn't what it should be like after this amount of time. And the reason I'm pretty sure is because I used older yeast. It's actually on the edge of being good or not good, and fresh yeast makes a big difference. You can store yeast after it's been opened in a sealed jar, either in the refrigerator or the freezer, for up to, they say up to 6 months. Well, I'm between 5 and 6 months, and this is half of what it ought to be. So that tells me that my yeast went. So that being the case, I'm still going to make this, and we'll see what happens with it. But I'm also going to do another one with fresh yeast, and we'll see if we can see the difference. Here she is out of the oven. Still pretty warm, but you know, I can't wait. Look at this beautiful loaf. Even though it's not perfect. Oh, listen to that crust. Still hot. And you can see it's denser. It's denser because of the yeast not rising like it should, but it's still soft. It's still nice. Difference between old yeast and new yeast. The stuff I did with the new fresh yeast is ready to go here after 3 hours. Let's look at it. Now look at the difference. Look at how bubbly that is, and see how much it rose. Way more than the other one. That's how it's supposed to look, okay? And we're going to turn this out onto a floured surface, a good floured surface. Oh, it's living, and it's supposed to be more, how's the best way to put this? It's going to be like that. And use a flat scraper. We're going to start doing some fold overs like this. Just about 12 times. Keeping count because I'm not. Okay, that's it. Now comes the next part. The next part is I'm going to put it in a, put it back in this bowl. But we're going to put parchment paper in there. The old days we used towel, but newer days, this is a nice way to go. So, we're going to take this and put it in there. And then we're going to cover with a cloth. Here you can see it. Like that. Then we're going to cover with a cloth for a half hour. And while that is doing its next thing for a half hour, we're preheating our oven to 450 degrees, and I'm also preheating my Dutch oven in there. So my Dutch oven is in the oven and they're both heating up to 450. Okay, half an hour. So the next step is I take my Dutch out of the oven, and this is hotter than Blue Blazes, so make sure that you're using oven gloves or good mitts or whatever, because it's really hot. So, have my, and it's hard to see here, but this almost doubled in size. Now the tricky thing is, you're going to put this, parchment paper and all, right in the Dutch. Just like that. And I'm going to tamp that down. And the lid from the Dutch is going to give it the steam that this needs to bake. You can already see a big difference between this one and the last one, and how that turned out and what it looked like. But I'm sort of glad that it happened, because you can see the difference between old yeast and new yeast. And you know how to correct it. Now we're going to put the lid on. Like I said, be careful, this is hotter than Blue Blazes. Like that, and then we're going to put it back in the oven for a half hour. Okay, so the next step, it's out of the oven, and now we're going to do something else. Oh my God, look at that beauty. I'm trying to see here. Okay, so it's steamed nice in there, it rose nice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take it out of the parchment paper, like that. So there you can see what it looks like. I gotta admit, that's beautiful. Now we're going to put it back in the oven, uncovered without the parchment paper, for about 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, so we get a nice crust on there. There she is. Out of the oven. Now look. Oh man, listen to that. Nice and crunchy crust. So I gotta let it cool a little bit, and then you know what comes next. So here she is, and she came out just beautiful. Came out just beautiful. And I want you to take a look at this. All right, so there's this one. And then here's the one we did earlier that didn't have good yeast. Okay, and just look at the difference in height, and you can see the inside. And we're going to cut this one open. Oh, listen to that. Oh, look at that, people. Isn't that beautiful? And see how nice and soft that is. So, tale of two breads, really. This one here is not a loss. I'm going to cut this up and use a little oil and make croutons out of it. It'll make great croutons for salads. And this, oh, we gotta let it cool a minute and then, you know, the taste test. And I wanted to also point out between these two, I'm sort of glad this happened because you can see the difference between when you have good yeast here and bad yeast here, that's not fresh, and some of the things that can go wrong with bread. Talk a little bit more here when I do the taste test. So here it is. I started this with butter, just so you can see, once again, how nice that came out, how soft that is, how crispy it is on top. And, you know, then you can see this one. That one's a lot flatter, a lot denser. What happens with the bad yeast or inactive yeast? It's old yeast. And when I was doing this, I should also mention that you always want to aerate your flour when you're making bread. Some people say that's sifting the flour. Some people say that it's not, that you just use a whisk in the bowl when you first put your flour in. I sift. I've never had a problem sifting, so that's how I aerate my flour. So this was really easy. It was 3 cups of flour, either bread flour or all-purpose flour. A 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. It doesn't matter if it's quick acting or old Red Star, it doesn't matter. And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then 1½ cups of hot water. The hot water is my hottest tap water, not boiling. Okay, boiling is too hot. I took a temperature on mine. Mine is running around 120. Ideally, you'd want it around 130, 135. The reason that this only takes 3 hours to sit and raise is because you're using the hot water. If you use cold water, then you leave it to sit to raise overnight and then follow those other steps of turning it out on the floured surface, using a scraper to fold it over a dozen times, putting it back in a bowl with parchment paper and the towel, then baking it in the Dutch with the parchment paper for a ½ hour with the lid on, removing the lid and the parchment paper for 15 minutes to get that nice crust. That's it. It takes some time either way. It takes a lot less time with the hot water and with good yeast. And but oh, look at the goodness. Now I sound like Bill Gowdy, but oh, this is so good. And well, Bill's doing the low carb thing, so well, sucks to be you, Bill. Oh my God. There's just nothing better than fresh bread out of the oven, I'm telling you. I gotta get myself a glass of milk for this. Listen to that crunch. Delicious. So, this was for Deb, for DIY Dark Matter. No-knead bread, anybody can do. You don't need anything special for it. You can do it in your Dutch, and you've got great bread in a few hours. Can't beat that. And if you're really impatient and like your bread fast, you know, and don't want to have to wait a day and wait for all the other rises and the proofing and everything else, this is a great recipe. This is really good. I also wanted to add, people are intimidated by making bread. It doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can use this recipe with whole wheat flour or oat flour. You can add goodies into this, you know, poppy seeds or sesame seeds or chive and onion or a little cheese. You can customize this any way you want to. It's really easy. And so that's how you make easy, the best, no-knead bread. If you liked what you saw, like, subscribe, and join me next time here in Helga's Pennsylvania Cooking.